Every single one of us finds a moment in their lives where we realize the current pace we're living is just not going to continue to cut it. That at some point, something comes into our lives that says you need to change things up. You need to mix it up. Things are going to need to slow down for you for a little bit. And that actually happened for me almost 3 years ago. We were about to celebrate our 20th anniversary. We had a son who was at the time 17, 15, and 13, so 2 boys and a girl. And essentially, we thought we were about 5 years out of being empty nesters completely. And instead, God had something else in store for us. The idea of adoption had kind of been a 3-minute conversation every 5 years. And it was kind of went something like this, like, could we, should we, maybe, no, I think we're good. I mean, that was typically how it went. We had spent some of that time, like I said, in New York City. And so we had about 1,100 square feet for the 5 of us. And our 3 kids shared the master bedroom like 3 bears, like just 3 twin beds lined up in a row. And then Gabe and I had the second bedroom. And then we would walk in that room and fall on the bed. So I don't even know where we thought we would put a 4th child, except maybe in the bathtub. So it just didn't seem possible to even fathom how adding to our family at this point could even happen. Couple that with the fact that I was, traveling a good bit and just didn't even understand how to make this work. But we moved to Nashville and a lot of people were talking about adoption. And because it had been in my heart since my youngest daughter was born, basically my last biological, that's why I feel like it was like sand in your shoe. It kind of just was an irritant that you couldn't shake. And so as a result, I remember telling God one day, I just said, if you want this to happen, you're going to need to make it happen. And I need you to put her right here and I'll name her Joy. And the idea behind that was just because I had walked through about a 7-year stretch that it began with a little bit of depression and anxiety. And I remember in that season, I kept saying, restore to me the joy of my salvation, restore to me the joy of my salvation. And I claimed Psalm 126, where he says, those who sow in tears, burying the seed, will reap a harvest, carrying songs of joy with them. And so it was just kind of this idea of joy. I had that conversation with Jesus in my minivan in the garage, and then I went inside and kind of forgot all about it. And within a couple years, I had a friend of mine, Meredith, who texted me a photo of a little girl right here from Beijing. And I said, she's adorable. What's her name? And she said, Cara, Chara. And I said, oh, you mean the Greek word for joy? And she said, yes. And if that's not enough to convince you that you need to pay attention, I don't know what is. And I remember telling my husband, whereas in the past, it was kind of a very quick conversation. But within 2 days of that week, he said, text me, we need to talk about Cara. And his response as a father, just stepping into this, he says, I believe God is inviting us into something. And we have no idea what's on the other side of this surrendered yes. This might be more important than anything we've ever done to the heart of God. We have no idea. So let's step into this. And of course, I was nervous. But I knew immediately, like, this meant that my life as I had it, as the freedom that I thought that I had, needed to shift. And I would need to have a lot more time at home. And I would actually need to have a lot more time just preparing for her. It was like a pregnancy in so many ways. We had about 9 months before we would even have the idea of getting to travel to pick her up. And the beautiful thing about Joy's story is that my oldest son, Caine, had a Down syndrome diagnosis about 6 hours after he was born when I was 26. And we always knew that we wanted to choose Down syndrome if we ever got that opportunity again. And so Joy was a little girl who was left at a hospital when she was 4 months old by her family, supposedly. And so we really believe that God just preserved her life, got her in an orphanage, raised her up till about she was 5.5 by the time we got to her. And the beautiful thing that I would have never considered Down syndrome initially, but because God brought Caine 17 years ago, it's because he also knew that he would bring joy and that we wouldn't be as intimidated by that decision because we had walked it, and our answer would be yes. And so what that looked like for me in the rest category of changing my life that year, preparing for her to come home, Gabe and I doubled down on like marriage. Like, we're like, are we worthy of her? Like, is our marriage in a healthy place? And I remember calling our friend Emerson and saying, we need to just come up and visit and get a tune-up. And I remember him saying, is this a tune-up or is this an intensive? We're like, oh, it's just a tune-up, right? It'll be fine. And so we get up there, and about 21 hours into counseling, we're like, it might be a little more than a tune-up. And the beautiful thing about rest is sometimes there are things that are left unsaid because you just don't really want to go there. And I think a restful relationship, a restful marriage is just making sure that we're healthy and that we're communicating things, and like those deepest longings of our hearts are being said and received well. And then we doubled down in parenting. We're like, we wanted to make sure that with our teens, like that they felt ready, that they were in harmony with each other, with us. And it felt like a real year of just going like, this is how our family's going to slow. She's going to enter a home of 5 adults, essentially. And we want to make room for slow, for Sabbath, for margin, because she's going to adjust to the idea of siblings and parents for the very first time. And quite frankly, I'm really glad that the Lord allowed that year to reposture kind of my mode of going and doing, and just said, I need to go ahead and carve out those first 9 months that she's home to be home, and to slow down the travel, and to just be present for her and help her learn English before she starts school about 9 months after she got home. And that was a kind of a midlife reset yet again. And I think God invites us into those things. It doesn't have to be a story of adoption, but sometimes he invites us into seasons that just require a reset, a pause, a stillness that goes like, I'm making a way, I'm preparing you for a new season, and a heart and a posture of rest is how you're going to need to approach that.
Hi everybody, I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe today and you'll never miss a new upload. Thanks for being a part of our Better Together community.